and say welcome everyone to the September 15th, 2025 meeting of the Southborough Historical Commission. I'll note it's at precisely 7 o'clock as we're ringing in with myself, Kevin Miller's chair, Vice Chair Annie Pfaff, and Kelly O'Brien and Grant Farrington in attendance. Dan Blanchard and Michelle Hokinson are not available tonight. So the first thing we have on our agenda is pursuant to the demolition delay bylaw, and it's with regard to a property at 11 Newton Street. And I know that I could see that the applicant is in attendance. So at some point, Mr. Neven, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. We'll find out shortly. But we'll ask him if he would like to say anything. But I want to set this one up because it's a little bit complicated, and want to make sure that everybody understands where we're at. Now, as our usual procedure, when I scheduled the meeting and then sent out the agenda, I sent you some supporting documents that went into the OpenGov system as part of the upload for this application. And it's a little bit, I need to clarify a couple of things because it's a little bit tricky this time out. And I had a little bit of initial confusion. The property in question is at 11 Newton Street. And it involves, it's kind of an interesting case because 11 Newton Street is covered in the State Historic Database, but only under the East Southborough Center area report. And in that report, the residence itself this would be the Ercole, E-R-C-O-L-E, Mattioli House, M-A-T-T-I-O-L-I. And according to the Macris report, Mattioli was an independent contractor, says, who utilized the large outbuilding attached to his house, more on that in a moment, for an electrically powered cider mill and sawmill workshop. So it's kind of an interesting story. And I'm trying to just call up the other references here. It's noted that the house, which in the inventory at the end of the report, I'm trying to scroll down to that. If you bear with me 1 second. Some of this is a little bit slow to load. Okay. The house is listed as circa 1889. There's a 2.5 story gable front with a cottage outbuilding. And there's a notation in the Macris report about the house that the outbuilding, and again, I'm scrolling through multiple pages here. Let's see. Of course, it's coming up very slowly. But that one of the notations about this house is that there was a large shingled barn workshop attached to the north side of the house that was freestanding until the mid-20th century, and that was then attached, where you can see it in the photos. There's a sort of a short, basically an L that connects the house to the barn. And at the time the Macris report is done, it noted that the barn retained its slate roof, had a high brick basement story with granite lintels over the windows, and we'll see that in a moment. The other part of this that's kind of interesting with regard to the house is that it says the house itself may have been moved from the reservoir during the reservoir construction. So again, with the inventorying, and again, I'm sorry, I'm kind of stumbling over this because I'm having to scroll through multiple pages while I'm trying to talk. 1889, circa 1889 in the house. The attached barn, the barn that is now attached, presumably from roughly the same era. And again, the original owner of the house operated some kind of sawmill and a cider mill out of that location. So it's an interesting structure. And when the application came in, I want to screen share with you so I, again, bring everybody up to speed on what we're looking at here. This is going to be, okay. This is what the applicant is proposing to put up. You know, it looks like a two-car garage with an ADU. Everybody loves ADUs now. We certainly support that as an endeavor. But that, and there, you know, I sent you this document with the detailed plans, but that's basically a rendering of what the applicant proposes to put up. And there was initially on my part a little bit of confusion about what was involved here because essentially what I'm showing you here, this is the existing dwelling, and that means the house, the original house. And right about here is where the connecting piece is. And then this was the barn that's referred to in the Macris report. And there was this kind of lean-to garage next to it. This is Newton Street run. This would be the southern end of Newton Street running to the north. So this is the north end of the property. This is the street facing side. And if you want to see, now this is the Google Maps gives you a better idea. This is basically the photograph of what you were just looking at here. Again, I'm just trying to orient everybody. So now it's substantially altered at this point. This is the current Google Maps, but the image goes back to November of 2019. And you know, here's the original house. This would almost assuredly the connecting piece that was added in mid-20th century to link the house directly to the barn. And you can see a little bit over here. This is this piece, this garage was probably added quite a bit later. Mid-20th century has since gone away. So I originally, when this application came in, I must say, I thought the proposal was involving, and it's funny, I drive up Newton Street fairly often, but the image I had in my mind is this, and I thought what was being referred to was this structure. That turns out not to be the case, that really the proposal, what the applicant wants to remove or replace is back here, which I'm circling with my cursor, and it's a sort of separate structure. Now, the evolution of this property is interesting. This is the near maps imagery of what's gone on here since, let's say, 2019. There's the barn. Again, this is Newton Street. This is the original house. A pool, a deck was added, but this is the structure that we're actually here to discuss back here. And what you see, you know, has gone on. 2020 looks the same. 2021, the pool construction and stuff, but there's a dumpster, and you'll start to see now there's work underway in 2022 with the barn being worked on. You can see it here in 2023. And by 2024, May of 2023, so it's been over 2 years now, this has all been already done. It didn't come before us, but it's done. So you know, that was the basis of my confusion. And you can see now in 2024 and 2025 what you're looking at. And so for instance, I just rode by the other day, and that's what it looks like from the street now. That it's been um, quite substantially worked on. There you see it, and you see the original. They didn't deal with this. It was left the way it appeared a number of years ago with the those doors and you see that the brick foundation. The reason I want you to see this is the brick foundation part of it is very interesting, because then when you get to see what I've got here, that again, this is just from the street. I'm looking up now. This is the subject building. So again, on my part, there was initially some confusion about I couldn't tell from the application what was being proposed, which was implicated. But it's actually this building back here. And what's interesting about it is if you, and the next photos I'm showing you were taken today. This is the north side of this structure. And you see it's got the same brick foundation as the barn in front, and a similar sort of treatment with the windows in that foundation. This is the rear of the building. It's got this very interesting chimney, which it's just a guess, may have been used to heat the building. Of course, it wouldn't be to code today, because I mean the smokestack doesn't even rise above the ridge line of the roof. But there it was whenever this was built. And the last part of this is the inside shot. And one of the things that's very interesting about this is the dimension of this lumber, because that may be one thing that is of interest to the commission, because those do not look like 2x4s that get post 1924 reduced to 3 3/4 by 1 3/4 inches, and then later in the 20th century to the 1.5 by 3.5 that we know. Those look big. And so it's a little bit suggestive of, or maybe a lot suggestive, depending on your point of view. I just want to hear what people think of maybe some considerable age. The building is obviously, in quite a state of disrepair, and there's some graffiti and whatnot. But I know the applicant has indicated that you can see for yourself that just in these photos that it's lived a hard life. That's for sure. But I think one of the things that's interesting here is that when you look at compare this structure to the historic barn, you see the same kind of window treatments. I can't see in the other photo the granite lintel that's here in the barn, but so that's about all we know, right? And I just remind everybody that, and the applicant, again, who I know is with us, and I'm appreciative of that, is that the point of tonight's discussion is simply to determine, and one follows the other, right? If the commission believes that the building has historical and or architectural significance, if not, we vote no, obviously, and the applicant goes on their way and does what they want pursuant to the conditions set by the building department and the other inspectional services in town. If we vote that the structure is historically and or architecturally significant, it simply triggers the requirement under the DDBL within 45 business days that we hold a public hearing. And of course, that is the point where we decide whether the building should be deemed preferentially preserved, which, I just want to quote the bylaw exactly. that it means that any historically or architecturally significant building which the commission determines is in the public interest to be preserved or rehabilitated rather than demolished. So the big decision, of course, if we decide as a commission to find the building historically or architecturally significant, the big decision is made within 45 business days. And as you know, we try to do it as expeditiously as possible because I don't have any interest in A, holding people up, or B, tilting at windmills. So again, tonight is simply to determine if we think the building has historical and or architectural significance. If it does, then a chance for neighbors and other interested parties to weigh in at a public hearing. And then even, of course, if the building is deemed by us subsequent to a hearing or in a hearing as preferentially preserved, that still doesn't mean that it gives us then the right to hold it back from demolition for up to 9 months, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily will or have to. We simply have to be satisfied that there's no party willing to purchase, preserve, or rehabilitate or restore the building, and that there's no reasonable, that the owner has made reasonable bona fide efforts to find someone to do it, and those efforts have come for naught. So it's all, it's all a process. With regard to, again, the confusion that came out of the fact that the large barn was done, I don't know the circumstances. And at this point, that's not our responsibility, right? That is solely, and that's actually covered under the demolition delay bylaw, that it is the building inspector, not us, that has the authority to deal with any, if there are, some issues about past work or, compliance issues. That's not my thing. And we're not here to deal with that. We're simply here to deal with the matter in front of us. So I was just trying to kind of clarify, clear the field, make sure that everybody understands what we're doing and what we're not doing. We're not, the gray clad barn is nothing of our business right now. What is our business is this little garage in the back. And frankly, we don't have, there was a plot plan submitted and you can see the building on there, but I do not see in the Macris, because the references, and there's not an individual report on this property as a whole. I do not see documentary evidence in terms of narrative evidence talking or referring to this garage at all, which is not dispositive. It doesn't mean anything. It simply means it's not mentioned in the report. So the only thing that really that we have to go on pending, and again, to the applicant, I would say that if the commission decided that, we needed to go the extra step and hold the public hearing, at that point, we generally ask for, a site visit for the entire commission, whoever wants to come, so they can look and, there's no deliberation. Everybody comes and they has to be quiet the whole time. Everybody looks around, thinks their own thoughts, and goes home until the public hearing. So the only thing I think personally, and I want to hear, from the rest of the commission, but the only thing that, in my mind, that we really have to go on is some of the, the evidence of the lumber is interesting to me. And you see the similarity in the foundations between the barn, which we know dates to the 19th century, and this outbuilding / garage. And I, even in the agenda, because at that point when I submitted the agenda, I was unclear what structure we was talking about. So I sort of covered my bases by referring to this as a barn workshop slash garage, which could be all of the above. So with that, and I'm sorry it took so long. Annie, do you have thoughts on or where you're at on this?
I do, yeah. So I am, so first of all, thank you, Kevin, for all the, the photos. That's very, very helpful. The background, kind of seeing the progression is helpful. So I am not convinced just based on, the lumber and some of the bricks, that it would be historically or architecturally significant. So if, I would be voting to say no, it's not. But I'm eager to hear what the other commissioners say. And then just a general anecdote. I'm, just generally in favor of, ADUs. I think creating housing opportunities for, in Southborough is really important. And I think what the applicant has proposed is, much better than what's there now in terms of aesthetically, but also utility for himself and potential housing. So I think I'm in favor of what he's planning, and I don't think it's my vote would be that it's not historically or architecturally significant.
Okay, thank you. Grant?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. In prepping for the meeting, I also was not sure which building, was kind of up for consideration. So really, I wasn't able to glean any other info other than kind of just looking at pictures and the pictures that you shared. To be honest, I'd probably prefer to do a site visit, which would involve voting tonight to say that it's architecturally or historically significant, just to get to that next step. I'm not convinced one way or the other right now whether or not I would vote to, at the next phase to preferentially preserve it. But I think I'd be interested in at least going to the next step, maybe getting some more info, seeing it in person, that kind of thing. And then, I don't think that would add too much time to the timeline. And then, at a future meeting, I would be in favor of, well, actually, we would be bound to obviously to make a determination of preferentially preserving. So probably at this time, I would like to also hear from the applicant if he'd like to speak, but um, just because I can't really get a great sense, I think, from just looking at the photos, would probably be in favor of going to a site visit.
Okay. Before we turn to the applicant, Kelly, do you have anything you want to ask or add here?
I'm going to refrain from everything right now, only because I work in the building department. I don't think it's fair.
Okay.
So I'm just going to hold off on any voting or discussion.
Okay, fair enough. I still had the screen share on. I hope I wasn't messing up your screens because I realized I left the screen share on. Was working all right? Good. Okay, thanks. All right. Well, Mr. Nevin, I apologize if I've mispronounced your name. Please correct me. Do you want to speak? I'm pulling you over into the meeting, so if you just unmute, and if you want to talk, feel free.
How are you doing, Kevin?
Good. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this terrible structure. So I am a very long time licensed contractor. I am a master finish carpenter specialized in high-end residential remodeling in Newton, where I grew up. I know more about historic properties than I care to share. So what I will say is when I bought this property, that particular thing was about chest height in beer bottles and beer cans and couches and human feces. And I'm not kidding when I say that. It was disgusting. When I bought my house, it was a short sale. They literally put a bag on their back and walked out their door. It was a very unsavory family that lived here and very sad. From what I've been told by neighbors that live behind me, police raided that little subject property because the kid was dealing drugs out of that property. The reason why it's spray painted with racist and cult-like stuff is a major problem for my family. My wife is an immigrant to this country, and it's time for it to come down. I have a neighbor next to me that is an awful human being who is well known in the building department, the police department, every department, and I've had enough of looking at that structure, and it's time to take it down. It's got holes in the back. Your photos were pretty terrible, no offense. But a tree branch fell on the back roof. I don't know how, a large one several years ago. I don't know how it actually didn't do more damage than it should have. But the little makeshift chimneys falling down, it's actually become a animal house, literally. I have several feral cats that actually live in that, and also groundhogs and raccoons and wasps, and the whole animal farm hangs out in there. So I'm definitely ready to remove the eyesore. I know my neighbors all around me will be very happy for that. And I don't see any historic value to that property. I'm very familiar with my house being built in 1880 where the reservoir was, and then around 1895, 1896, from what I understand, it was moved to where it stands today. And then around 1962 is when the addition was made, which connects it to the 1840 barn at the street. That little subject property at the top of the driveway, I do not believe that it was built in that era. Again, it's kind of what I cut my teeth on for nearly 25 years is old properties. So I've sold because I'm a realtor. I've sold older properties in and around the area. I've also worked on many old properties. So I speak from a place of knowledge. So that's about it. It's just a disgusting property that needs to come down, and like it should be done sooner than later. And I think the neighborhood and the town will be better for it. We have enough stuff on Newton Street that's problematic, like my neighbor beside me that is a renter and has 6 trucks and excavators sitting there. And we have our buddy down at the corner property that's, growing weeds on the corner and will never build something. So it'd be nice to do something to uplift the neighborhood a bit, because there's a lot of problems on Newton Street.
One thing that I would mention, and I neglected to do this, again, this is more directed back at the commission, just FYI, is that it appears to me that the structure was, it looks like it was framed. You see the gapping in the sheathing, which looks like it was framed, or the underlayment is for a wood shingle, a shake roof, which, that could be done now. But it does, again, is one of the things that does catch your eye and suggest age. It doesn't prove anything one way or another. But again, it's just more information for the commission. Well, Paul, I appreciate the input, and I understand, wanting to move on. I will say, regardless of how the vote turns out, if we do move to a hearing, with your background, you probably have some experience with this, but we have up to 45 business days. But generally what we try to do here, because we're trying to be applicant friendly, is if we decide that a hearing is warranted, I try to schedule it as quickly as I possibly can, rather than drag it out. And what it boils down to is how quickly the official notice in the newspapers can be posted and how quickly I can get a quorum together. So, we're trying in all things to do it with an eye toward not inconveniencing people unduly, and at the same time, making sure that we don't let things slip away from us that are important to the town, even though it's always a frustrating experience for an applicant. Why don't anything else before we kind of like try to move this toward a vote, Paul, that you want to mention? And
I mean,
I appreciate the fact that, you know, you've got, I mean, obviously it's an open structure, so it's filled with, you know, the wasps and raccoons and all kinds of nasties. And you know, the you know,
there
unfortunate graffiti and all that
there
stuff.
is a broken down greenhouse on the right hand side that's dangerous as well. I mean, it's really a dangerous structure.
Yeah.
Um, so I just I with all due respect, I think it would be laughable if this went to some 45-day thing. Like it is a ridiculously bad structure
Well, can I ask you how
that
long
has
have you owned, can I ask you how long you've owned the property?
um April 2010, so 15 and a half years.
So if it was, I mean, you know, just as devil's advocate, why not deal with the structure prior to that?
Normally when you buy a house, the outside gets dealt with at the end.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
That's
All right.
like the last thing, but I don't have a garage in my house, and
Right.
I do have 2 electric vehicles, so it's not ideal. And I know my wife would really love to be able to pull her car into a proper garage at the top of the driveway, and to have an actual 2-car garage at the top.
Right.
The main structure, the main barn from 1840, that has actually timber like logs. Like
Mhm.
that's a legitimate old structure, that, you know, theoretically, if I was to repair the inside, I mean, there's a lot of damage from the previous owner who owned the house for 16 years, I believe, off the top of my head, and he let the whole thing go, and there was water damage all over, and it started leaking into the house. So that was, you know, took precedent, and that was problematic. But this little structure has literally just become like, yeah, I opened that little sliding door by the driveway and shoved my lawnmower in there, and like there's firewood in there and stuff like that. But apart from that, I literally have 2 like outdoor feral cats that live in there, that have somehow been living for a long time. I see them on my camera every night. I see raccoons. I see groundhogs going there. I see all types of, you know, fun creatures. And I do know like one of my neighbors behind me who I'm close with, she would love to see this thing come down. She's been waiting for the day because she has the perfect vantage point at the end of Lyman Street up above me, looking down on me. So I mean, she was the one that told me about the previous family, and the son was dealing drugs out of this little subject property. So it's not a good property. So it has no historic value.
All right. Well, I thank you for your input. Again, thank you for, you know, coming to give us your perspective. And I think with that, we can kind of move on and see how people want to vote.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Paul. All right. So that's where we're at. Anybody else further comment? Again, this is, you know, the only thing, I mean, the only thing we're dealing with here right now is that garage. And it's not, you know, one of the elements of this is that I don't think it's advisable to anticipate how to try to anticipate how the hearing would go and vote on this step of it accordingly, although I acknowledge the temptation. In other words, the survivability of that structure seems to me to be my own view. For what it's worth, the odds are low. But you know, to me, it's a bit of a tricky one because I do I do see some signs of considerable age there, but I do understand the applicant's point that it's kind of a non-starter as a structure, and is obviously in considerable disrepair. And I think, personally, my view is that a structure like the garage, or whatever it is or was, is significantly less important than the barn, which has already been addressed, and that, may or may not warrant further conversation, but it's not in our bailiwick. So shall we move to a vote on this? Any objection to doing that? Anybody else want to say anything before we do it? All right. If not, we'll do a roll call vote, and I will go to Annie first. I'm sorry, I should gotta frame this.
Yeah, what, can you say the exact motion?
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? Sorry. It's been a long day, I must admit. Okay, so the motion here is going to be, good grief, I want to just get this exactly right. The motion here is a vote on whether or to deem the subject structure at 11 Newton Street historically and or architecturally significant. So that's my motion. Someone needs to second that.
Second.
Thank you, Grant. So then the vote is, if you vote yes, you're saying, I believe it is historically and or architecturally significant. If you vote no, you're saying, no, it's not. Everybody clear? Good. Okay. So roll call vote. Annie.
No.
Grant.
Yes.
Kelly.
Abstaining.
So then it is up to me, and I am going to vote no. And here we have, so it's a 2-1-1 vote. No. So Mr. Nevin, you are with regard to this issue and the Historical Commission in the clear. Thank you for attending. Let's move on.
I would like to add that this still has to go through the building department. So
exactly, of course, and that's
out of the clear. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and that, go to the building department and all the other, inspectional, electrical and this and that. But we won't hold this up under the DDBL. So let us move on. And thanks for everybody's patience for that. I thought it was a kind of a complicated one, so I wanted to get it as clear as I could for the record. So we've got a couple of things I want to talk about with regard to Historical Commission CPC initiatives. The way I split this agenda up, I could have combined some of these things, I think. But first of all, on the town common fencing project, of course, we got, we are co-sponsors of this initiative with the select board. Andrew Dennington and I, presented last May at the a town meeting for this. We carried the day, thankfully. I just want to let you know where it's at, because it's some of this stuff is a little bit slow rolling. I have a hard time spending town money, I think, sometimes. And I had raised the question about with Andrew Dennington and with Mr. Cundiff of the DPW about whether or not, how much consultancy was required for this, because it seems to be, on the one hand, a very straightforward and simple project. But Mr. Cundiff made the point that, in order to bid this properly and to get the right specifications and the oversight and a restoration plan, that even a simple seeming project has a lot of moving parts in his view. And so the three of us came to an agreement that we really did, need bid documents, restoration plan, construction phase, services, field inspection. And that is all going through VHB, a well-known consultancy to people familiar with town government. And so I've seen the contract. It's been drawn up. It was drawn up as of August 19th. And it just remains, I think, to be fully executed and acted upon. So I hope that we'll see some action on that fencing project fairly shortly. What I would like to see is construction by next spring, so that it's done in a timely way and the town sees where their money is actually going. And the hope, of course, is that we'll be able to return at least some money to the kitty. That would be the coffers of the Community Preservation Commission. So there is progress there. Secondly, the Rural Cemetery Water Tower. Boy, oh boy, has this been a bit of a logistical tractor pull, because as you recall, I submitted our application on this project last August, and then it kind of got bogged down in uncertainty over how much it was going to cost, what was the extent of the work that was actually needed. The previous chair of CPC, Ben Smith, advocated very strongly for a more comprehensive evaluation of the structure. And ultimately, I agreed. If you recall that Mr. Cundiff and I had tried to get some contractors out to look at the roof, and we got stiffed on one occasion, and it turned out to be very difficult. And then I started calling around and speaking with architectural historians and consultants last spring to try to get this buttoned up. We pulled the application in favor of concentrating on the fencing project. Finally, I started to make some very significant connections, and to make a very long story short, the person that is really I found most helpful is a gentleman named Dennis Semperbon, who runs a company called Beacon Hill Restoration out of Holliston and is deeply experienced in this stuff. And he's going to come out and look at it. But what he wanted was to do it from a lift, not from a ladder, so he can really, really, really look at this building and look at the roof and look at all the masonry, and we can make sure that our bid is historically accurate in terms of what we want to do with the roof, and also will cover all bases. Well, anyway, it took a really long time to get that arranged with DPW, because they actually have to rent the lift, and they are very kindly doing so. And so Chris Leroy, Mr. Semperbon, and I are going to meet down in the old burial ground Friday morning at 10 a.m. To do this inspection. And if any of you folks want to drop by and witness this, you're more than welcome. We just got it scheduled this morning. Now, CPC's deadline for this coming round of applications was today. And so finally, having gotten this inspection scheduled this morning, I submitted an updated application in Historical's name, of course, this afternoon. So I did make the deadline. And the only thing I had to say to the chair, and of course, Grant is our rep on CPC, but I said, I sent the application into Lisa Braccio, the chair, and Freddie Gillespie, who's their consultant, and just indicated that because the inspection won't happen till Friday, I don't have hard numbers in terms of dollars. And won't for some time, but hopefully, and with trying to respect their process and their need for deadlines, hopefully they can work with us through the fall going forward to try to get this off the ground. The last thing is the old burial ground. Mr. Dennington of the select board and I have had multiple conversations about the need to do some things in the old OBG, and we've walked it a couple times together, and he wanted to move forward, but frankly, we have both gotten caught in time constraints. The select board is doing a million things right now, and I felt a little bit overrun, and so we did not get an application submitted for that. I don't know if CPC will consider late bids, but this round for us, maybe better devoted to just the water tower and trying to get this fencing thing moving. Right into chair's report, which is sort of what I've just been doing, but on the historic house signs, I delivered the one that we approved the last meeting for 10 Maple Street, the J. Carrigan house, was made and delivered. The recipient is delighted and already sent me a photo that he's installed it on his house, and it looks great. Have you seen it, Annie? It's your neck of the woods.
I haven't seen it, but I actually met them at an activity in town yesterday.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's nice to meet a neighbor that has that connection.
Yeah, I've only met the husband, the gentleman, and delightful guy, nice as anything, and they made a very generous donation that hasn't been credited yet, in excess of the value of the sign. So I was grateful for that. So that's going. But here's the exciting thing. You know, this thing we've talked about like months and months, and it's been a year. I've been trying to deal with this person. We have an answer on the 24 East Main sign application, and all credit to Kelly O'Brien, because
Go Kelly.
I mean, and I got to bring this up for you because it's just like nuts. And I mean, this is one of the really happy things, if I can swing it here. All right, trying to screen share again, think and talk at the same time, which is sometimes a challenge. This is all the Newton Street stuff. Get out of that. Kelly, I gotta bring this thing up that you sent. Now, for some reason, oh wait, no, that's other stuff. Hang on, everybody. Just 1 second. I'm gonna stop the share and search out what I need to bring up, because trust me, it really is worth like 2 seconds of our time. I'm so delighted by this. Okay, here it is. Great. You know, okay, and I'm gonna go back to the screen share. Best thing ever. Okay, so Kelly got all this stuff from the Registry of Deeds, tracked it all back, and let's skip all these many pages of Kelly's hard work, with all due respect, and go down to the bottom. This is brilliant. This is a transfer. Do you remember the issue was that 24 East Main is listed in the Macris as the C.B. Wilson house, built circa 1890, while 26 East Main, which is not an applicant, but just the next door neighbor to the east, is listed as the Charles B. Wilson house. So we had the C.B. Wilson house at 24 and the Charles B. Wilson house at 26. And we're like, now we got two Charles B. or C.B. Wilson houses next to each other, which is which, and what's the deal, and who owned what, and yada, yada. Even though 26 hasn't applied for a sign, we were trying to avoid, to get it exactly right. Well, here's the story. You see, this is a transfer, a deed Charles B. Wilson, that's our C.B. Wilson, to one Eunice Newton, right? And I'll skip down to when the date this is executed is August 1st, 1884. So August 1st, 1884, Charles B. Wilson sells his property to Eunice Newton. Well, that doesn't prove anything because we were having this, when was the house built? Forget it. Remember, this was all this farmland. It's in Grant's minutes. That was all split up, subdivided. Well, if you start reading, there's a description of the property and that it contains 69 square rods, more or less, which for the record is about 0.43 acres. If you do the rods, we don't measure by square rods anymore, but the square rods to acres, it's about right. The property now is it's about half an acre. And it says, note right here where my cursor is, laying out how the size of the property, and assigns a certain parcel of land containing 69 square rods, more or less, with a new dwelling house thereon standing. Bingo! New house. And further down it says that this parcel of land is the same land conveyed, this is my cursor again, conveyed to me by William Jennison by his deed of warranty dated May 15th, 1884. So now we not only have we're absolutely sure, if you think about this for a second, in 1884, in May, Charles B. Wilson, who lives at number 26 and who was a carriage painter, buys from William Jennison this parcel of land. He buys it on May 15th, 1884. On August 1st, he resells the parcel with a newly constructed house to our friend Eunice Newton. Done. Because that tracks exactly right. Right where we need it. Charles B. Wilson, an enterprising young fellow, as it turns out, buys a piece of property right next to his house, knocks out a new house in 2.5 months, turns around and sells it. He's a flipper, basically. Andy, you would appreciate this. I mean, he's a guy who buys a piece of property, builds a house.
This story is unbelievable. It's amazing.
I mean, when I got to this bit about there's a new house, he sells the same parcel that he bought 3 months earlier, 2.5 months earlier, now with a brand new house on it. Done. So thanks to Kelly O'Brien. Again, some applause here. Not only do we know, yes, it really was Charles B. Wilson that built this house and why the connection, the two houses named next door, but we did the Macris one better because they have the houses built circa 1890. I'm damn 100% sure it's 1884. Exactly. Based on, there it is.
And that's actually outside of the circa range, isn't it?
By 1 year.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a 5-year. So Kelly has trumped the experts at, the state, and I am really, 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 really happy about this. So, and by the way, it explains why the 26 East Main property would be the Charles B. Wilson house and why the Macris researchers would have said this was the C.B. Wilson house to differentiate it. And they kind of give it the initials rather than the full name. Because you know what I mean? Like the house the guy lives in is the Charles B. Wilson house. The one he built next door and immediately sold is the C.B. Wilson house. I think what my motion is going to be is that we stick with that nomenclature. We call the house the C.B. Wilson house, just like it is in the Macris report, and because it makes sense now. But we pin the exact date on it because you couldn't get anything better than the parcel of land, 69 square rods, more or less, with a new dwelling house thereon. And then the guy says, 2.5 months earlier, I bought this exact same property from George Jennison. Had nothing on it. He's buying the property, builds the house, and flips it. So, Kelly.
You wouldn't want to maybe name the house the William Jennison house because he's the one that built it and flipped it.
No, I think it's clearly it's Charles B. Wilson that built it because he bought the property. That's the thing where there was that confusion in the narrative line that you'd written at the top. So what Charles B. Wilson says is, I'm selling this to Eunice Newton on August 1st, and I'm selling her this parcel with a new house standing thereon. And then he says, this is the same land that I bought from William Jennison. So I think it's pretty clear that, in other words, he bought the land from Jennison in May, built the house in the summer, and sold it right away because when he doesn't, the house is newly constructed. He's not buying the house from, like, in other words, this is the transfer from Charles B. Wilson to Eunice Newton. And he's saying, I'm selling her this parcel of property with a brand new house on it, and it's the same property that I bought from Jennison. And in other words, I think it's pretty clear that Wilson didn't buy it from Jennison with the house and then turn around and sell it 2.5 months later. That he bought a piece of open land from Jennison, built the house that summer, and then immediately sells it. Like that's what.
So Kelly, what I think you're getting at is, should we be crediting the builder or should we be crediting like the first person to own and occupy and steward the house? Is that what your question is?
Yeah, because it looks like, well, how I understood it as William Jennison had the property, and I'm sorry, I can't see it that good. His had the property and then he sold it to Charles.
Right.
So
And
was the house on there when Charles got it?
no, that's the
Oh,
thing.
okay. All
Yeah,
right. I think I was a little confused.
Right.
I was just trying to go back and back and back.
right. Well, that's it. So, in other words, Jennison owns the property. Charles Newton buys it May 15th of 1884 and then sells it suddenly with a house on it on August 1st. And I think it's unmistakable. And the Macris people, see, what I'd said to you earlier when we chatted is that the Macris people should have explained this rather than just putting it in there with no explanation. Because as soon as you see this, this document, I mean, to me, it was like crystal clear that Wilson bought the property from Jennison again in May, built the house, and then turned around and sold the house and the property to Eunice Newton. So I think to Annie's point, I think the only choice would be between Eunice Newton and Charles B. Wilson. But I think the conventions, Annie, I don't know what you think of this, but that and there might be an argument to be made to call it the Eunice Newton house. But I'm just going with, like, to me, when I see this, I understand why the Macris researchers pegged it the way they did. Because it is Charles. I think it's really clear that Charles B. Newton, or I'm sorry, Charles B. Wilson, Charles B. Wilson built the house.
Yeah,
Is
go
there
ahead.
information on how long Eunice lived in the house? Was that a substantial period of time before the next deed transfer?
Yeah, I think we have that.
I did post like the deed and stuff where you can see the transfer. That's I
Yeah.
tried to progress. It was a little hairy at some parts, but I tried to get as much as I could. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the Fay House, I think it was the Josiah and Mary Fay House on Chestnut Hill. That was one where it was listed as the Josiah Fay House, but she was the one who lived there for 80 years. And
yes,
we thought it was more significant that she had lived there, so we wanted to add her. I think
Yeah,
regardless of this one, I think we should probably be thinking in that way going forward, that this guy's a builder, right? And if he built 10 houses, we probably wouldn't name them all the Charles B. Wilson house.
Yeah.
Like if a builder today
Right.
built 50 homes in Southborough, you wouldn't name them all after the builder. So
yeah, there's a section in Southville where this comes up, where there's there was someone who built, so I'm trying to remember the street, who built several of the houses on this street, and the naming in the Macris are sort of variations of that. But so far as I know, I think there's only the Charles B. Wilson and the C.B. Wilson house. And in a way, it tells a very interesting story about, you know what I mean? Like some guy, and again, the guy was a carriage painter, but he sees his opportunity as this section of Southborough develops around the turn of the century to basically pick off a parcel that's right next to him, quickly, you know, fairly quickly build a house, which is, he would be pleased to know, has endured for 140 something years, and then sell it. So you know, like I said, I think I would, totally open to discussion, but would like to, my personal preference would be to say, this is 1884. We know exactly the year. And that it is indeed, as the Macris researchers had asserted, the C.B. Wilson house. It's just that they didn't do a very good job of explaining why or what the circumstances were. And I would love to submit based on the stuff that Kelly was able to find, an edit to the Macris that would explain that this house was, you know, built. Because, and by the way, Annie, I think you were asking it looks like that it's sold by, I think, an heir to
His
Unity,
brother, Charles, passed away.
right after like 20 years. So
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, no, thank you. Because the next transfer is in 1904. So, but how do you guys feel? Is this all right with everybody? Yeah, you good with this, Annie, or?
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yep.
Kelly, I couldn't be any happier. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the historic house sign for the property at 24 East Main as the C.B. Wilson House with a date of 1884. I don't think we're ever going to get a better, the guy, you know, again, the guy buys the property May 15th, 1884, sells it August 1st, 1884, and notes that it now has a new dwelling house on it. You can't do much better than that. I mean, if we're ever going to get off the circa thing on a house, I think this might be the one. So
I'll second that.
thank you, Annie. So roll call vote. Annie?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Kelly?
I just have one thing, I'm sorry.
Sure.
24 and 26, just make sure, because you had said this was for 24. I just, at the top of the paper, it might say 26. I just want you to confirm the right date, the right address.
Yeah, you're wrong on the address, but right on everything else.
26, because I had done one for 24 too. This is one I looked up for 26. This is 26 East Main. And I had done a previous one for 24. So just remember, I did two different addresses because initially I was asked to do both of them.
Oh,
So
wait,
just confirm before we do the vote. That's all.
Oh, got it. Okay.
oh my goodness. Wow. Now, oh boy.
I'd like to rescind my vote now. Just
Wait, let me bring this up. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Well, that's going to be very strange.
did it say the address of the house on the document in the deed
Very
book or anything?
top, at the very top of this document,
Yeah.
it says 26 East Main because that's where I was researching. One that I had previously done was for 24 and that
Yeah.
went down. So this is for the 26. The other one that I did is 24.
Are the rest of you as punchy as I am at this point?
You know, I can't tell you how many times I went back and forth and around. It was like I spent nights looking this up.
Yeah, wow, oh boy. Sorry, I'm looking at my other screen while this is going on. Yeah, like,
So does it say in the deed book anywhere that we could confirm? Like the one that you were looking at, Kevin, does it say on the sale,
yeah,
is that 24 or 26?
so I pulled up the other one that, oh gosh, I just pulled up the other one. I'm looking at it. Kelly's 24 East Main, and wow, okay. Oh my goodness.
Your eyes just went.
Yeah, I'm swimming. Her property and Patrick Fitzgerald. Oh boy.
If you want, I can create something that will have like each column. I don't mind doing that.
You know, I think that now there's no doubt. Oh wow, there's no doubt about. I completely. Boy, it takes a team here. Let's put it that way. The good news is that
We know what 26 is now.
Yeah.
Should we order
26.
on the sign? Should we just do it?
Yeah,
Should reach
like
out to the homeowners and
no,
give them a sign.
no one's asked the 26, but I think um that boy, now we know. Oh my God. I can't believe it. It's kind of comical. If we all weren't so hot and tired or whatever it is.
So for the
None of this has to go in the minutes, Kevin.
Thanks, Grant. Yeah.
for 24 East Main, I have George and Eliza Dennison was deeded the property in June 1865.
Right.
And that makes sense because maybe William Jennison might have lived there with him and it's just not here. And he built that house. I can do a little more digging. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I think we need to, oh my gosh. I think we need to go back now we know for sure. I can't believe I did that. What 26 is. But now I'm muddled about 24 because 1860s is way too early for that house. I've been around, Kelly and I have been around this thing so many times in different permutations. Yeah, I think we're going to have to hold this again. Oh, I'm so sorry. You lovely,
Hey.
lovely, tolerant people. We are trying. And I mean,
It was an interesting story, or it is an interesting story.
I mean, well, still, I mean, now 26 is nailed down for all time. I still see Kelly, the issue is why did the Macris have 24 as CB Wilson House? Because there's that gap in there. Looking at it, you see the Jennison stuff, but you don't see, this is the part that's driven us crazy, trying to be so diligent about it. Let's go back at it again. Let's talk offline about this straight.
Is this something where, Kelly, I think I was looking at the document from our last meeting, or I think you had shared it with the 24 Main where you had the list of the owners and stuff like that. Is this something where maybe there was an owner who lived there for a long time that we might want to name it after them rather than the builder if we're unclear or something? Or just something to think about. But as I said, I think we did do that with the Mary Fay. Was it Josiah and Mary Fay house?
Yeah. What we did with that one, Grant, was remember that Josiah Fay was the Revolutionary War, patriot that was poisoned.
But he only lived there for a year.
Right. And he only lived in it briefly, and then his wife remained. So he's a very significant figure historically and has to be on the sign. But the argument by the owner was that, she then stayed there for 40 years, and we agreed and put her name on. They're both on that. It says the Major Josiah and Mary Fay house.
No, but I think that's a valid course that we might want to consider taking on other signs where,
Yeah.
instead of just crediting the builder, especially if they did multiple homes, that there might be more interesting stories to tell for the actual.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that goes to Annie's comment earlier, is the same kind of idea, so I'm in support of that totally. So yeah, Kelly, we'll have to chat again. I'm so sorry. You guys,
Sure.
very
You know what I
sweet.
did find interesting was when I was reading these deeds, it all makes sense because they talk about like at the post by so and so's house, like it's almost like it talked about the neighborhood, like who were its abutting neighbors, and it did it with 24 and 26,
Mhm.
and they matched up. So I
Mhm.
thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But yes,
Wow.
I will go back and do
Thank
some more.
you. Well, again, bravo on 26.
I know. So we should reach out and see if they want to sign.
We'll put our heads together. We'll get to 24. Oh, goodness. All right. The Boston and Worcester Railway sign. After our last meeting, actually, Sam Stivers contacted me and made a suggestion about getting that mounted, and I pursued that. It didn't pan out. Kelly, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to the Assabet people. This is the bridge abutment sign to get that mounted. But then I also talked to Chris Leroy about this at DPW, the operations supervisor down there. And he said, well, listen, we have people that come in and out that have some expertise in this kind of stuff. Do you mind bringing me the sign and I'll see what I can do? So I did. I took it to him last Friday and it's now sitting in his office rather than my basement. Because there's no one that comes into my basement that has any expertise in welding and sand mounting. So we may get some traction from our friends down at DPW. And in fact, Chris said to me, he remembered this coming up in a way previous iteration of the Historical Commission when this sign was proposed, planned, and ordered. And he said, I never knew what happened to it. And I said, well, what happened to it was, they ordered a sign in a way that wasn't going to work. And that's why it's been. So anyway, that's the good news. And I really appreciate Chris taking an interest in getting it mounted. With regard to the Revolutionary War veterans on Mark Gray's project, this is another one that's been dragging. Michelle Hokinson has done some work trying to get to the bottom of how, one of the things we discussed was like a plaque mounted in a stone that would harmonize maybe a little better with in a graveyard or some kind of variant on that. And she's been doing some research on that and trying to get to the bottom. There's one, for instance, at Chestnut Hill Farm, actually memorializing donors. And it's trying to get more information. So that's still, quite frankly, hanging fire.
That one's quite nice, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
what, and she and her Ray are on it. So that's, contacted those people, and that may be an option if we can get there. So members reports. I'll turn it over to Annie. She's got some stuff, and I can bring that document up for you, Annie, if you want to.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Like, while you go ahead and talk, and I'll share it.
So first thing, just as a matter of, kind of housekeeping, we need to do our annual vote of the commission to allow signatories on invoices and payroll. We don't have payroll, but that's technically part of the authorization. So yeah, we just need a motion saying that both Kevin and I are authorized. And then we do need all members of the commission to stop by the townhouse and sign this in person. And then Grant, once we have the minutes from this meeting, those are to be submitted along with this paper, just saying we took the vote and we each signed, and that makes it official.
Okay.
So I would say, if Kelly or Grant want to make the motion, then we can vote on it. I just don't want to make the motion for myself. Does that make sense?
Does.
Yeah.
I make the let's see if I can do this. I make the motion to authorize Kevin Miller and Annie Pfaff to sorry, what is it?
Oh, to sign invoices and payrolls.
To sign invoices and payrolls on behalf of the Historical Commission.
I second the motion.
All right, roll call vote. Annie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Miller's aye, 4-0.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
And Annie also did, as I had asked Annie to find out how much money we've got, thanks
Yeah,
to the donation
we-
account. And there's good news.
Yeah, there's really good news. So we officially have $750 in our donation account, soon to be 850. As Kevin mentioned, the most recent sign recipients made a very generous donation. It just hasn't posted to our account yet. So that's exciting to see that grow. It's nearly up, as much as almost our annual budget was to kind of pay this forward, which I think is the idea. So that's exciting to see that grow. And what we're doing is we're tracking who has donated in our master historical sign spreadsheet. So you can kind of see, like, if you want to track who's donated, not that it's, has to be one for one. That's not necessarily the idea. Again, it's an optional thing, and amounts are, kind of vary across the board. It's not like they're paying for it. It's an optional, kind of nice to have donation, but just so we can, put the checks to the name. There is one unidentified donation. So, I don't know, Kevin, I think you have probably the most communication with the sign recipients. If you ever hear of someone to say, oh, hey, did you get that donation? And it's not marked on our sheet, that could help kind of, solve that mystery. But so far the town doesn't know. They've looked into it, they can't figure it out. So there's one $75, unknown donor. Otherwise, we have been able to track everyone else who's contributed.
I think we might be able to figure that out if I have some time to dig around in my emails and, but it's the bottom line. I mean, look, a little over a year ago, money that we had that's solely ours and doesn't go away at the end of a fiscal year was zero.
Yeah.
And now we're closing in on $1,000. I mean, if we could do that every year or two, a decade, we're going to leave, a
A
future
good legacy. Yeah.
a nice legacy for other commissions to. So I think, I'm
That's
really
excellent.
happy with the way it's turning out.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll mention is, we have barely spent any money so far this year. I think we've had maybe one sign last year. We only had a couple of signs. We've returned a lot of our money last year. So of course our money has been set aside for the sign program. But I would almost say it's time to do some more marketing to try to get more applicants so we can spend down that money that we've set aside for this specific purpose, to kind of keep it going, so we can spend our budget that we've set aside for it.
Yeah, Annie, can I ask you, like, you know how much in my mind, and I think I talked about this previously, that I had hoped that we would spend a few bucks, getting that Boston and Worcester sign up, whatever that costs, and then we have a donor on the Revolutionary War marker, so we do have we have some free money going up. So I think it's a very good idea to basically what happens, when we spend money out of our budget for historic house signs, and then if we're fortunate enough to have a donation come in, it's basically moving the money from one ledger to another, i.e. our annual budget to this enduring donation account, which can build. And then if we really do have a big need for some initiative, we've got a little reserves. So I would be all for, maybe we could reach out to the blog, or and ask your talk to people or your neck of the woods, or you know, if there are other people that are interested in a sign, we're certainly open for business, you know.
Could you
Oh.
remind me, can the donation account can be used for any historical commission purpose, right? It's not set aside for just for the sign program?
Correct. Correct. It basically goes into, you know, it's whatever, and under the Mass General Law, you know, making for historical commissions, we have really very wide latitude in terms of what even we can accept. You can, the historical commission can accept real estate.
Yeah.
And real property and monetary donations, and there's no restriction on what we can do with it.
I would say while there's no official restriction, I would say there's a case for properly stewarding the funds where, you know,
Of
if we're
course.
soliciting it to say, hey, help us, you know, keep this program going in perpetuity, you know, if a donor thinks that's what their money's going towards, I think that's the proper way to steward the donation. But Kevin's correct. We're legally not obligated to do that.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're not going to be throwing, you know, hot dog safari or, you know, but it'd be, you know, we get into a situation where I envision down the road when we go back to the town with the demolition, with an updated demolition delay bylaw, for instance, that we're going to need considerable outreach, and that's could cost money in various ways, even taking a presence at Town Day, for instance. And the other thing that I'll bring this up in another meeting, but I think I can think of a couple of ways that we might consider spending some of this money, you know, in a way that would be meaningful to the town in fairly short dollars, but would be significant for the historical commission, and that's in connection to the tricentennial committee, which I think that we should make a good show of supporting, you know, especially if you know, we've got the funds to do it. But go ahead, Kelly.
So the what was I going to say? I just had a couple questions. One, well, here's a comment. Maybe we could reach out to 26 East Main, see if they want to sign. But going back to the allowance of funds that you and Annie are going to sign for, where would we go up at the town hall? Would that be at the town clerk's office? Would it be, just for clarification?
Yeah, usually like how it's been done in the past is usually it's like one of the first like two desks on the left, like where like the clerk normally is.
Okay.
Or sometimes they just leave it out on the desk even if it's like not manned. That's how I've done it in the past. But when we send this all, you know, through, we can confirm the exact logistics and let you know exactly. But it'll be first floor of the town hall.
Thank you. I just needed to know.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I would have gone upstairs to the Carla's office, and so good. All right. Anything else, Annie, on that, on the money front?
Nope. Just, you know, I had mentioned this, but we still have like $1,426 in our budget for this year. As I said, we've only expended, you know, the amount for one sign. So, you know, a very healthy budget, and, you know, at this time of the year.
Yeah, and we should, you know, I definitely think we should push to try to get more signs out. Again, I was kind of leaving it open in my own head to get that Boston and Worcester sign up. You know, it's going to require a poll. It may require, you know, you remember the quote, it was like to ship it back to Pennsylvania and get it retrofitted the way they wanted to do it, they were going to charge us almost $1,000. So it had me very nervous. I'm hoping we can get it done maybe through Chris or something else, you know, for much less, but we're still going to have some latitude. And I think, again, I think maybe at our next meeting, we should have a scheduled discussion with Michelle here about some possible support of the Tricentennial Initiative, because I think it's the right and certainly we're all in support of that. And, I think the commission itself as an entity could do something in that direction. So, Grant, I know CPC is kind of gearing up for their next cycle.
Yeah, we're getting back into the swing of things. I think I mentioned at our last meeting that we kind of revamped the application process. Last year we created an application handbook for applicants to hopefully make it easier for them to, figure out if their project might be eligible, and other things along those lines. As part of that, we did last year we set a firmed application deadline. We did extend it this year, so today is actually the application deadline. I think it's until midnight if you guys want to throw one in.
You heard I did submit.
No, I know.
Submit for
was
the
a joke.
warrant part.
Yeah. If you just, yeah. And so just looking at the Dropbox, this is not official, but it looks like we received three applications for this cycle, including ours. So we're meeting on Wednesday. As part of the new process, we set a eligibility determination deadline, which we haven't had previously, which is October 10th. So essentially, we'll determine by then whether or not the project is even eligible for CPA funding and whether or not to kind of proceed, which should hopefully help applicants and not drag it out unnecessarily, that kind of thing. So we'll be having our first application review on Wednesday.
Wow.
And
Great.
I think that's it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I know you guys will be hard at it. And I would really look forward to hearing from Michelle next time about Tricentennial, because I know they've been quite busy and making good progress. Let's approve some meeting minutes, shall we? The first we had was April 3rd. I had been through those and a couple small edits I sent over to Grant, and I think you incorporated those, Grant, right, and sent them out to
Yep.
the rest of the crew. So I've already had my whack at April 3rd. Anybody else have edits on April 3rd? No, Kelly, no, Annie. Okay. Let's do that one first then. I'll move to approve the meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Well, Kelly got the silent second, and you're on mute,
Oh.
Kelly, but I acknowledge that. So roll call vote. Annie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Miller's aye, 4-0. Thank you, Grant, for April 3rd minutes. Now we've got July 9th minutes, and Grant, I do have a couple edits.
Okay.
These just went out today, so I can give them to you real quick.
Just give me 1 sec. I'll track changes on. Okay.
Okay. Line 36.
Yep.
Should be, let me see, I'm just pulling it up my other screen. Purchased
Oh, yep. Thanks.
with a D.
Yep.
Line 62. ARE instead of is. Granite abutments are irregular.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Right. Line 63, here's the persnickety one. I would suggest modestly and humbly, although I do not insist, on instead of the and in that sentence, take out the comma, the and insert a semicolon. If you really,
Okay.
again, you remember what my day job is.
I do.
So,
It's hard to forget sometimes. No, just kidding.
sorry. And finally, line 78, Fitzgerald's with a lowercase g after the Z. See that?
Wait, it should have a lowercase g, or it does have a...
Yeah, I believe it's
Oh,
just FITZG.
Okay.
Yeah, with just the F capitalized. Oh, and then in that same line, actually, an historically significant building.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
And that's all I got. And with my apologies for my persnickety
No, that's totally
question of
fine.
a semicolon.
I think I told you that I've been using the AI summary, so
Yeah.
and then kind of editing it from there, so the grammar is not perfect on that, and then I have to go back and fix it and everything. So
Well, I'm delighted you found a way to make it easier. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And they're coming out great. So, Annie or Kelly, anything on these?
So I was not at that meeting, so I think I'm going to abstain from voting anyway.
Okay,
But I
That's
did read and I didn't have any edits.
great. Okay, well, thanks. So then I'll make a motion again to approve the minutes of July 9th, 2025.
I second the motion.
Okay, so motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Annie,
Abstain.
Grant,
yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Miller is aye. So that's going to be 3-0-1, correct? Minutes approved. Thank you, everybody. Any other business? I have none. Public comment. Is there anybody that wants to make a public comment?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
How many vacancies do we have on the historical commission right now? Is it 1 or 2?
One, Dan has had, got caught up in that cycle of appointment, but he
Oh, I was in that too. The trying to get there to
right.
Warden. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of personal stuff, Anyway, I confirmed, I talked to him the other day. He's definitely is going to continue with this, which delights me.
Okay.
And I messaged the select board accordingly. And Kelly, did you mention you think he's on the agenda for tomorrow night?
Yes. I
Good.
thought it was tonight, but because I was looking at it and but it's got to be tomorrow night. Then I must have looked at the
I
wrong
think
page.
so, because planning was tonight, and I think select board is tomorrow, unless it was a joint meeting, which I didn't know about. But so yeah, Dan's going to get reappointed.
Yes.
Annie, and so that means we have one vacancy, and I would love to fill it.
Mhm.
'Cause I think it helps, work quorum issues. It's always, we were skating tonight, and we had to get this meeting in because of the thing. So yeah,
Yeah, that was kind of my point. Just making sure we have, we're always in a good spot on quorum. Like, should we be like doing outreach to, see who we know that might be interested, or
Yeah.
just wait and see if someone applies. I'm also asking kind of in relation to, I think we need to appoint officers for this year. Have we
Yeah.
done that? I don't think we've done that.
No, because we've
Yeah.
had this issue with. I like to do that when everybody's present.
Right, of
just so it's
course.
fair.
Yeah.
So we've had.
Yeah.
I knew coming on the last couple of meetings we had some issue with not everybody was going to be
Yeah.
there. So I
Okay.
withheld it, but I will, I think so we don't get too in arrears on that. I should do it
Mhm.
next meeting, to
Okay.
kind of refresh that because it was on my mind as well.
Yeah. And the only reason why I bring it up and new blood, whatever, I probably don't want to continue as vice chair only because I feel like I don't have the capacity to contribute much and help Kevin. So like if anyone else is interested in that, and of course, we're all doing other things. So if there's if we need to shift responsibilities, to free other people up, I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. That I likely don't want to continue or am not going to put my name forward as vice chair again.
Would you just, I'm not trying to make you commit.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to hang on as treasurer?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's light lifting. And to be honest, I don't feel as guilty. I just feel like I'm not helping you enough as vice chair, and not doing the role justice that I think someone else could.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's fair. So I'll definitely have that, Annie, on the agenda next go round, and we'll deal with it. And actually, I missed when we were approving meeting minutes to schedule the next meeting. So can we take a shot at that? And again, knowing that we don't have Dan or Michelle with us, but if I'm just going to call up my calendar here and see what we have. So let's say a month out puts us, a little pressure is taken off by the fact that we're not going to do the hearing on the Newton Street thing. But today's the 15th. So 2 weeks would be the 29th. 4 weeks would be the 13th, which is Columbus Day, which no one is going to want. How would people feel about Wednesday, October 15th?
That works on my end.
That's good with me.
That works
about
for me
you?
too.
Does it? Wow. Oh, great. All right. So Wednesday, I hope that works for me. I just threw it out. I think it does. Wednesday, October 15th, done. And I will, let the others know and hopefully that'll work out. That's all I got, friends. Somebody make us a motion to adjourn. And thank you. But this thing, can I just make a sidebar? I can't believe how turned around I got about this 24/26 thing. I've had a lot. I've been going around on my plate, and trying to pull these things, trying to get that inspection of that water tower scheduled has really been quite a thing. And then to get the application in today and stuff, and I think I got some turned around, and then trying to put all that information together for you for this Newton Street thing, which is a bit of a complicated business, to be sure, was a little bit addling, clearly. Anyway, but thank you for your patience with that. Someone make a motion to adjourn.
I will make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Thank you. Made by Kelly, seconded by Annie. Roll call vote. Annie?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Miller's aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Have a
Bye.
good week.
Have a good one.
Okay.